Hey, what's going on, everybody? So we just wrapped up practice number 10 for spring practices. Only 4 more practices remaining until the spring game on April 14th, which I will talk a little bit about some things that I'll be watching for in the spring game a little bit later in this video. But first, I want to start with my observations with what I watched today. So today I paid attention to the quarterbacks in particular. I know I focused on the quarterbacks throughout the spring, but today I really wanted to watch more of their drills from start to finish in the 4 periods that were able to be out here. So I watched them. That was great. Again, really working on some accuracy and footwork. Very common things to work on for a quarterback, but the drills that they do, those were the things that they really work on. You know, they definitely want to improve on those. Also too, you know, before the defense was out here against the wide receivers, the quarterbacks were working on throwing the ball to a space about 30 to 40 yards downfield, just getting the right proper angles, the loft on the ball that you're looking for with those big plays downfield. So that was good to see. I thought all 3 quarterbacks did well with Tyler Van Dyke, Jakari Brown, and also freshman Emory Williams. I thought all 3 of those guys threw a deep ball pretty well. You know, for the most part, again, not going against the defense, just on these basic drills. Also too, you know, when you're watching the accuracy drills thrown into the nets in particular, you're just working on consistency. You want to make sure you're hitting all the targets that you're supposed to be hitting. And I thought those guys today did well with that. You know, I didn't think there were any errant throws, or if there were a little bit off, it wasn't noticeable to the point where it was an issue. So I thought those things did well. Also too, what's fun to watch is when they go through different offensive sequences where they're working on some play action stuff, either handing the ball off, really working on some tempo stuff, really getting as many plays in as they can just against air, essentially, when they're running plays just out there. So all those guys got good reps. The way they split up the quarterbacks, all the guys, you know, the 2 walk-ons as well, get a good number of throws when they're throwing on 2 ends of the field. They're on the half field, using half of the field. But all 5 of those guys getting plenty of reps. Those are the things that stood out to me. Again, I think Tyler is doing well. You know, I know he really wants to take a step forward after what happened last season. He spoke about that as well. And basically, he says his shoulder feels good. And from what I've seen out of practices, the 10 that we've been able to be out here for, not able to be out every single one of them, but through 10 practices, I've not seen anything where it looks like his shoulder is an issue. So that's a good sign. He's been out here every time we've been able to be out here, so that's good to see from him. This is just another spring of development for Jakari Brown, coming off last year where it was good for him to get some playing time, able to get in there, understand what games are all about, had some success, so that was good to see winning a game, you know, as a starter. So that's, again, good for him to build on moving forward. Out here, once again, working on all those drills, learning a new offensive system, and that's always difficult for a young guy to make the adjustment to college, learning one system. That's already going to be a difficult task, and now he's going through it again. So we will see how he does kind of moving forward. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does in the spring game, you know, seeing him make big plays, especially in the passing game with these wide receivers. So looking for Jakari, working on his accuracy as always, as with the rest of the quarterbacks. And for the most part, I thought he's done well, you know, in these drills. And you'll get the chance to see him also with these drills that I'll post on the channel with the videos. So definitely stay tuned for that. You know, and the same thing with Jakari, works with Emory, 2 young quarterbacks looking to establish their voice even more as young guys on this team. Again, Jakari's been out here for a year, but, you know, with Emory being out here for his first spring, that's something that I've been paying attention to, just, you know, just hearing him, you know, speak loudly, whether it's a play call or maybe to his teammates, whatever that might be. He's not yelling at guys from what we've seen, but just, you know, his cadence, you know, just being in control, being confident, essentially, running the right plays and doing those things. Just listening to him speak out here is another thing of being a quarterback that I've been paying attention to when we've been able to be out here. Another position group that I did watch and watching drills exclusively, aside from the quarterbacks today, was the wide receivers. I always enjoy watching the wide receivers. It's always been that way, just watching them go through their drills, but especially with Kevin Beard, new coach, learning him even more, you know, learning him what he wants to do, what he wants to tell his players. So a guy that explains quite a bit, you know, always a positive, upbeat coach, but again, very communicative with how he delivers his message during drills, how he wants a drill to line up. And as a former wide receiver, he's able to go through a little bit of demonstration of what he wants from his receivers. So that's good to see, watching him go through the drills. So with the wide receivers, again, today, one of the things I think is going to be something to watch for in this spring game, you know, from last year's spring game, the wide receivers did not have a big day. And this spring, it'll be interesting to see who's actually going to participate. Because today, as it's been for a lot of this spring, a lot of guys have been in the red non-contact practice jerseys at wide receiver, so they're not going through everything fully, and unless they're able to get cleared to do everything fully, they're not going to participate in the spring game, so that might be something to watch. So today in red jerseys, Frank Ladson, when he's been out here, has been in a red jersey throughout. Robbie Washington, a freshman, primarily in red, although he has been in the traditional orange. At times I've seen him in that, but today, once again, he was in red. Michael Redding III has also been in the red, and I will get to something that he said today that stood out to me. But also Colby Young, today Colby was in the red, even though he has not been in the red throughout the spring, but he was out here, so that's good that he is at least out here. But I'd like to see Colby in the spring game, in that setting, chance for fans to see what he could do. I'm looking for the wide receivers to have a big day, whoever that might be. And I think that's going to be the thing, like which wide receiver is going to have a good day. I know that they want to have a better performance than last spring, but I think if you're looking at a guy like today, for example, Isaiah Horton got promoted to the first team with Colby Young out. Still Jacoby George and Xavier Restrepo, but Isaiah Horton had an opportunity. And I think he might be the guy, assuming he's healthy, to watch for in the spring game. Coming off of last year, didn't play much. Not a lot of people know about him, but going into his second season, a guy out of Tennessee with great size, I think he's a guy that maybe has a chance to really, create a name for himself in the spring game. Again, if guys are out, guys at his position that maybe would be taking his spot with reps with Redding, Ladson, and now Colby Young, I think Horton is the guy that to watch for as a potential guy to make plays in the spring game. He's looked good in drills, but again, actually coming down with results against the defense will be key for a guy like Horton. Same way with all the wide receivers. So with Michael Redding III, one of the things that's great about watching the wide receivers, not just hearing what coach had to say, the way he's given his instructions, but also being close enough to hear the players. And today I heard Redding speak to new freshman Nathaniel Joseph, goes by Ray Ray, obviously you guys know that. But he just told him, just briefly going through a drill, about playing, like being smart with the drill, and kind of gave him some tips on how to do that. And I feel like that's what's great with this group. You've got some young guys at the wide receiver spot, but you got older guys that have been around like Redding that can help the younger guys come along. And I think Redding is a guy that definitely seems willing to do that, and that's good to hear his voice, with those younger guys. So I just feel like that's good to hear, and hopefully Redding's able to get cleared for that, at least the final few practices, to see if he can kind of take that jump. He's a guy that's battled through injuries throughout his time at UM, but he has shown flashes when he's been on the field. And I remember last year, seeing him get promoted in a spot where we didn't really think that he was going to be elevated the way he was going into the season. And Tyler Van Dyke really liked what Michael was bringing to the team. Jacoby George is a guy that many of you are excited about, and you're hearing about him throughout the spring because he has been a first team guy, and wondering if he can break out. We've seen him for a couple years now, shown flashes in a few games throughout his time at Miami, but really looking for that steady, big-time performance, big-time breakout season. We will see. Attributes are there. And one of the things that after practice, Javonte Brown, a cornerback transfer from UCF, I asked him about Jacoby in particular because he mentioned him among the guys that he's going up against in practice. But I was curious, just his perspective, what it's like going against Jacoby. And he said he does a good job with his releases, essentially disguising what he's trying to do out there. And then afterwards, after the interviews were over, I kind of pulled him aside a little bit, just briefly talked to him. I was curious about just what he meant by that. If it was, at the line of scrimmage, if he's just unsure of what Jacoby's going to do, or if it's downfield, 5-10 yards downfield, if he's not sure how his breaks are going to be, if he's going to release, going further downfield, or if he's going to stop, cut off the route, and do a shorter medium route. So I just asked him about that. So we had a good chat. Javonte had great, perspective on what it's like going against Jacoby, and just feels like he does a good job with all those things, either off the line if he's trying to press him, or with his releases. He also said too, he's deceptive in terms of his ability to catch the passes downfield, make catches with his hands. And certainly if Jacoby's got big hands, and that definitely helps him obviously as a wide receiver. Just a really fluid route runner, someone who I do think, based on what we're hearing from the spring, if you're to say who's a potential breakout candidate just on spring performances from the offensive side of the ball, I definitely think Jacoby can be that guy. So just to update on the channel and the videos, I posted the linebacker drill video. Finally, I'm going to get to the offensive line drill video as well as defensive line. And as you heard me speak today, I've got quarterback video on the way. And I think the wide receiver one can be long enough for a video. So just stay tuned to the channel. Subscribe if you haven't done that yet so you don't miss any of that. And just a few more things wrapping this up. I'm really hoping to hear from the other assistant coaches that we've not heard from yet this spring. That's new linebackers coach Derek Nicholson, as well as defensive line coaches Jason Taylor and Joe Salavea. Jamal Adai, defensive backs coach, we've not heard from him either. Okay, but before I wrap this up, I want to speak about linebacker Corey Flagg, who spoke to the media, and I was able to ask him a few questions after he spoke to the reporters, and it was just great. You know, Corey's trying to slim down. He's still coming back from his injury from last season, so he's been limited at times throughout the spring, but he's trying to cut down on his weight. He said he was about 240 when he arrived at UM, played at about 235 last year, but he's eyeing about 220 to 225 this year. He's lost weight. It is noticeable seeing him up close. And one of the things I asked him about, well, first off, he said he wanted to get to that weight, and new linebackers coach, you know, Derek Nicholson also thought that would be a good idea for him as well. So that's good. They're on the same page with that. But I asked him about his weight in terms of, you know, I think a lot of players get to college and they feel like they always have to bulk up, which I do think for the most part that is the case. And I felt like maybe at Corey's position, now that he has seen it, you know, now that he realizes where he can be most effective, and I think maybe this would be something to pay attention to, is he feels like he can still be effective, still be a playmaker on defense at that linebacker spot, tackling guys, still going up against the big offensive linemen. He mentioned Javion Cohen as a guy in particular during practices that he has to go up against. But he feels like if he's down 220, 225, he feels like he can run a little bit better, feels like that'll be a good weight. And one of the things that he mentioned, which I definitely agree with when we were talking afterwards, was he wants to get down as soon as possible. He said some players maybe want to wait till right before the season to get to that weight at fall camp, or even before the season. He feels strongly that, you know, get to this weight as soon as possible so you get as many reps, you know, especially in spring ball, getting used to playing at the new weight. You have all off season to get ready, as opposed to just making that adjustment late before the season. So I thought that was good. And again, there's still plenty of months. You know, fall camp doesn't start till August, season opener in September, so they still have time to get ready for that. But I think spring ball is definitely a great opportunity for players to either work on their weight, you know, plus minus, either way they want to go with it, but also maybe some different things depending on what position. Obviously, you're always working on skill development, but maybe there's certain things that you'd want to work on, maybe test out during spring practices that you don't really have that luxury at times during fall camp, and then obviously during the season. So spring ball, that's what's great about it. I'm looking forward to hearing from the coaches that we've not heard from yet. Always would like to get more feedback from Coach Cristobal, as well as the coordinators. Hopefully we get them next practice, but definitely stay tuned. Appreciate you guys watching. Definitely stay tuned to the channel for more drill video and more content there. So hopefully have a good rest of the day, and take care.